Okay, Alex, we're going to try and get started when you're ready, because I don't know if anybody else is going to join us. And let's get started. And when they come in, they just come in. What I'm going to do today here, it's Anna. Here comes Anna.
Oh,
So what I want to do today is two things. First of all, I want to teach you how to teach with technology. And this is, if I just give you ideas, you're not going to understand. I'm going to give you like a framework, right?
Okay.
And we are going to include the ideas and the applications that you can use with each of the things that we tell. Morning, Anna, how are you?
Great.
Yeah, good. So the new normal.
No, that was me. Great.
Oh, okay, Alex. The new normal. This is us now, right?
Yes.
Basically, if you look at the image, you have your children around, you have like 7 dirty cups around your desk, wearing your pajama pants and teaching in the most professional way possible. So we need to understand that this new normal is here to stay. I mean, even though we are going to come back, hi Anita, how are you? Even though we're going to come back to on-site classes, this is going to be part of our reality from now on. And I think that in terms of cost savings, because the culture of work has changed, we are going to do blended things in the future. But to understand the new normal is that the first thing you need to know is that you're going to be teaching through a screen, right? And even though we can see each other, right? Like we are seeing each other now, I can see the pilot marker that Alexandra is putting next to.
Sorry.
It's okay. But you see,
I'm
these.
using my phone, so I leave the computer free for,
Oh, okay.
and I'm taking pictures.
Good. I'm going to send you this later, so
Oh, okay.
never mind, right? The first thing is you won't be able to see all your students at once on the screen. There is a functionality in Zoom where you can do, I don't know, up to 45 different squares on the screen. But unless you have a really big screen, what you're seeing is little heads, and you can barely discern the faces. Then there are students who do not switch the camera because of different reasons. So my take on this is sometimes they don't want to show the place where they live because they are ashamed, or parents tell them that they don't want them to have their image posted online in any form. Older
Yes.
students may feel like they don't like the way they appear on camera. I had a student who really had almost panic attacks whenever she was filmed, and we were in a course that required a lot of filming. And then there's so many things to attend to simultaneously. You have to manage the sharing of the screen. You have to manage the students. You have to manage the chat. You have to manage your timing. It's crazy. So this is a high pressure environment. That's the first thing you need to understand. And I'm going to give you tools to quiet down and to manage that. And then maybe you are not doing video conferences because students don't have the bandwidth. So you're going to be using CREA, which is a virtual learning environment. What do we mean by that? It's a learning management system. Now, it may be very good. It may have a lot of beautiful gadgets, but it's not an artificial intelligence tool. How do we create these systems? Through a series of codes that include zeros and ones, basically, right? So it's very structured, it's very counterintuitive, whereas teaching and learning are messy because we need to be interacting all the time, attending to different things. So you have to think that for students who live in a reality where everything is connected and in a network sense, right? They don't look at lists, they look at networks. They're going to find that learning management system rather static. It has a linear arrangement. And then because students are social media savvy, because they use social media a lot on the cell phones, it doesn't mean that they are technology savvy. Last year, my wife had the case of a student who had to write an assignment and send it through email. He sent an email to the teacher and the teacher didn't find the assignment in the email. So answered back and said, you have to submit again because you haven't submitted it. And the student sent again an empty email. You know where he put the assignment? In the asunto section of the message. He cut and pasted it there. He was not used to using email. So they are not necessarily technology savvy. So you say, oh, you can go. And
no, they use WhatsApp, but not other
exactly,
things. Yeah.
exactly. And then the other thing is your students are not used to working mostly through writing. If you use CREA, you have foros, you have tareas, you have evaluaciones, and all those things require writing. So this new normal is going to be completely abnormal for these students. And we have to organize our work in a way that they stop looking at the technology. Here comes Isabel. They stop looking at the technology and they start concentrating on the relationship. And how do we do it? We have to make technology transparent for those students. Hi, Isabel, how are you?
Hi, fine, thanks, and you?
Great. So we're talking about the new normal, Lisa, and the new normal implies that our rules of the game have changed drastically. And actually, the game has changed drastically. We're playing a completely different game. This is not the usual game, right? So to understand online communication, we need to understand a few things, right? There is communication online, and I have the window open. I'm going to fly away with the birds any minute. Now, yes. All right. We bring a lot of things to the online environment, which we generally keep hidden when we are teaching face-to-face. For example, we have an online persona. We all develop a kind of personality online, which is not the same one we have on site, right? We are more restrained. We tend to be more silent. We don't jump into discussions as we would do face-to-face. Isabel, don't take notes because I'm going to send you this and I'm recording it, right? So just, then we all have fears about technology. We have something, we teachers experience something called the imposter syndrome. Like, oh, they're going to the imposter syndrome. It's when you are not certain that you know how to do this. I mean, we are teachers, so we know how to teach. But when we teach online, it's like, okay, they are going to discover that I don't know how to teach online. They're going to discover, that kind of feeling affects the way we do things. We tend to be more tentative, to take fewer risks. We tend to concentrate more on our teaching than their learning many times. And I always say the first rule that you have to understand is the best technology for teaching is the one that you know how to use and that you have available. So master that one. Don't go and look for new things. Master the use of those things, right? And we're going to go over CREA today and see all the functionalities. Then,
what worries me a lot is how not to be so teacher-centered.
but you see, that is one of the dangers because students do not participate.
Of course.
And
it's true.
All these technology-based applications, because they are linear, they are sequential, they lend themselves more to upfront teaching, transmission teaching, than to other things. But we're going to find ways to make things interactive. We are also anxious about the situation. We are anxious about the time we have to spend planning, the time we have to spend preparing, the time we have to preparing technologically, right? Planning the class, preparing the technology, grading the students' work. Then there's our private life. We all, when we leave our home and go to work, we experience a break. We have a different environment where we are not pressed by the bell ringing, the phone ringing, somebody interrupting us, having our family around. I was listening to a Facebook. I don't know if you've ever seen that on Facebook, called Gente Rota. These are
Yes.
WhatsApp messages. And there was this woman
They're very
saying,
funny.
I moved outside my apartment into the hallway. I took an inflatable mattress and I made myself a kind of tent because I cannot take my children anymore. So these things affect us all.
Yes.
We have beliefs about learning, what you were saying, Alex, right? I know that if just by teaching you, you don't learn. But how do we contemporize that with the situation? Motivation or lack of motivation for learning. Many students are going to say about 4 hours or 5 hours sitting in front of a computer, right? It's tough. It's tough. And we have
Tell us.
expectations
We
about,
have got some time from 8 to 5.
exactly.
Or,
Yeah, for us, it's,
Mhm.
we're going to look at teacher well-being later on as well. And we have
Okay,
expectations
great.
about learning with technology because down deep inside, people are not certain that you can learn with technology. A lot of people say, I cannot wait to go back to face because they are not learning. Maybe they haven't found a way to teach them. That's why they are not learning, right? And then we have deficits, and that includes the students, or deficits in access, in how we know how to manage and produce through technology or with technology. So all those things, we have to be very aware that they are going to impact on what we do in the classroom, even if we don't want them to, right? Now,
Mhm.
to position ourselves in a productive way where we can cause positive impact on our students' learning, I would like you to advocate for one particular perspective on learning, right? Why this one? Because this one is the one I'm going to show you is the one that has been validated as giving origin to good online interaction and learning, right? Basically, this view of learning says that all learning has its genesis in historically situated social practices. What do we mean? What we are doing now is responding to a historical event. So what we are learning is for now. We are not learning how to teach with technology forever. We are learning how to solve problems of practice today. So let's not be ambitious and say, oh yeah, after this, I'm going to be an expert on teaching with technology. No, what we are learning responds to the here and now. And what we see are social practices. All teachers are coping with the same thing. We are all using the same tools. We are all going to the same kind of virtual place. So there are many similarities, but a lot of differences. Also, when we learn by participating in those social activities. And what happens is we learn from being inside the social activity. So learning involves a movement from social regulation towards self-regulation. So for you to understand, you are going to be the model that your students are going to emulate. Maybe it's you, maybe it's a video, maybe it's an audio, but the idea is the student will start from where you get them, and they will have to learn these social practices, which we may call speaking or writing or reading or listening. And how do we know if they have learned? Learning in this perspective is equated with an ability to participate more in these social practices, right? It's not about knowing or not knowing. It's about being able to participate more in social practices. When we are self-regulated, when we have appropriated the knowledge, the skills, we can participate. If you see that students are not participating, that is a sign they are not learning. Learning is made possible through something we call mediation, and that is our role. We teachers are mediators. One way of mediating is we, the teachers, teach the students, but students will learn as much from doing individual work, guided by the teacher, of course, by interacting with their peers in two ways. They can interact by working together, or you can put a student in the role of teacher teaching his or her classmates. If you have a student who studies English privately and he's very good at pronunciation, for example, put them in a group and have that person read the dialogue and do the pronunciation practice. Don't do a whole class choral repetition, for example. Then we say we learn when we are able to participate more, when we are able to self-regulate. We know how to do it, right? How do we get there? Well, we use some tools, and the tools we're going to use are going to be Zoom or Teams or Meet, whatever video conference software, Big Blue Button, which is conferences in CREA as well, CREA, and whatever materials you create for the students, right? A handout, a PDF, the web pages you select, the videos you select, all those are tools. So don't concentrate on the tools, concentrate on the learning that you want to see in your students. Because when people learn, first we learn, and then we begin to develop. So at the beginning, yes, it makes sense to do something in a controlled way, but progressively giving the students more responsibility for what they are doing, right? Say we have a sequence, we show them a little video, there are thousands of videos that you can use at different levels, right? The British Council page is a good source. National
Yes.
Public Radio in the United States, npr.org. They have a special ESL collection of audio and video interviews. BBC, you look for all those videos. Okay, the first time the student is going to watch the video, and you may ask them to do some listening activities, right? How you do the listening activities? Well, you do them through CREA. You take the evaluations and you say, watch the video and answer this question, multiple choice question, or put things in order, or match two parts of whatever. That is completely teacher guided. Then what you can do is, using the same CREA thing, you take a similar situation. Like if we've been watching an interview to somebody about COVID-19, from the interview, the students are going to learn something as well. So the second activity that has fewer control from the teacher, maybe giving them a lot of sentences on CREA and ask them which are the ones that the speaker says are connected to COVID-19, right? And what they have to do is select, put into groups, the ones that appear, the ones that don't appear. Then you could ask them to write a little notice about COVID-19, like a fact file. So every time you do an activity, the next activity is the student more working on their own. And we're going to see a method now, so don't worry. Why? Because social interaction is the basis of both learning and development. So unless students are working with somebody, they are not going to be learning. It is through social interaction that scaffolding is made possible, the release of responsibility from the teacher to the students. And the context is very important. That is why it's fundamental that you learn these things and you know about technology. We can learn in different ways. What happens is what Alex said. Most of the times, this teaching with technology take us to what we call, what Lori Lard calls, learning through acquisition. The teacher explains, or you give them a video, you give them a reading, they are passive, like you are now, okay? But we also learn through inquiry, discovering things. We learn through discussion, which doesn't mean actually talking, but it means exchanging information with others. We learn through practice, and practice is very important in languages. We learn through production, when we create something, or we learn through collaboration. We have a lot of electronic tools for these things. For example, for learning through acquisition, we have what we can call the lectures, the teacher explaining, the teacher saying things, a TED talk, somebody, there are a lot of tutorials online for languages. You may want to do that. You have ebooks, digital documents and resources like PDFs, presentations, websites, podcasts, and videos. Those are tools for acquisition. Learning through inquiry, you can give students study guides. I'm sorry. Like a step-by-step guidance. First do this, then do that, then do that. We call those study guides. We can ask them to look for example, use Google to find information about. Here's Sibela. And you have all those. For learning through discussion, you can have what are called online tutorials and seminars is this, right? Face-to-face video conferences. But you can also do it through discussion groups and forums, web conferencing tools, synchronous and asynchronous. Through practice, we have the evaluations in CREA, which are very good for practice, as I used to call it, machaking, right? Where, yeah, because students need to do that, right? But you can also use models, simulations. There are tools online, for example, that simulate dialogues, where the student asks the questions, they get an answer, or they get a question they have to answer, and they can do it on their own. And I'm going to show you 3 applications that help you do that, and they are very entertaining and very good. Then for producing all those things, and for collaborating, we have all those tools. So, oh yeah, a lot, but I don't know how to use this or this or this or this. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, let's think about how you're going to use technology. I make a difference between an acquisitional use of technology and a transactional use of technology. Acquisitional use of technology basically means this. It's a pre-designed thing. You know what Sibela sent us to the group? Those
yes, like worksheets.
Worksheets. That is an acquisitional use of technology. You pre-design it, students just drag and drop or fill in a blank. Everything is about the screen, right? It's not about the student. It's the screen. What is on the screen is what motivates the learning. And because of that, I say that it's machine deep, because you find the meaning inside the machine. You find the activity inside the machine. The contribution of the person is mostly acquisitional. The student is in the receiving end. Even if they write something or they interact by dragging and dropping, it's already designed for them. They don't have a contribution. So it responds to a transmission model of learning. However, we need this acquisitional use of technology. What cannot happen is that the whole lesson or the whole unit is acquisitional, because we know that social interaction is important. Transactional use is contingent. That is to say, it's contextualized. It's about the moment and what they need to learn. Of course, if you're going to have them practice pronunciation, you will find an application that has them repeat record themselves, listen to themselves, listen to a model until they get good pronunciation, intelligible pronunciation. But if you want them to communicate, you're not going to use something like that. You're going to use like Forum or one of those dialogue things, or Flipgrid, which I'm going to show you. It's interactive, it's learning in communities, it's people deep, because all the contributions come from the people. And it is mediated. Who mediates it? The teacher, right? So where do we start? First of all, building rapport. Now, if you look at my screen, and I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I'm sitting in my living room. Here, behind me, there is one object that has a lot of significance to me, and you have to discover which one it is.
The peacock.
The
behind
peacock?
You. Yeah. No.
It's at a peacock.
It's a peacock.
Dios, dale. Okay. There is something between the peacock and the books.
Oh
But
yeah, it's a mortar and pestle.
Mm.
A mortar and pestle, but it's made with igneous stone, with lava from a Mexican volcano. But it's not this one.
The dolls,
The
the Russian dolls.
Russian dolls? No.
No,
I didn't see it. Oh my God. I am so a dog.
This one.
Yeah.
This one.
That's
No.
No,
This
it's
one.
not a dog.
It's not a dog. It's
A bull.
A bull.
a bull,
Spanish.
yes.
but it's not the bull.
Well, one book,
Maybe one
maybe.
of your books.
One book. Which one?
Lessons
Lessons
learned.
learned.
No, it's not lessons learned. It's this one.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Okay.
There is a before and after of my teaching with this, by having read this book. And I have it here. It's the first book because I keep quoting from it and I keep rereading it. Well, you know me. I gave you a whole bunch of quotes. So what we have just done.
Yes, we read it in first of pedagogy at SERP with Jimena. Well, I wasn't with the girls, with Isa or Ana, but all the rest, we did it. It's
You
a
are
great
going to
book.
be rereading parts of it this year, so we'll see.
Great.
So what we have just done is an icebreaker, and it was led by me. But then you could ask the students to volunteer. First of all, volunteer. That is why I didn't ask you to do it. To put something in the background that is significant. And the others have to ask them yes, no questions, for example, right? And you do it at the start of the lesson for 2 minutes, right? Another icebreaker. Wait a minute, because I forgot to bring it. I'm going to bring it.
Mhm.
When we are teaching, students are coming from one class to the other, just like at school, right? And they may be anxious. And of course, this is English, and you're going to speak in English to them. And they are going to be, oh my God. So we need to do a little bit of mindfulness, right? Something that helps them focus and relax. Take a deep breath. And you say, I just want you to close your eyes and take deep breaths and just listen to this. It's a singing bowl, right?
Mm.
This is what I use, but it could be anything. You could play some music. If you noticed, whenever you come into my lesson, today I forgot to share the
You put
sound at the
music.
beginning, but I put music. And I have like 3 or 4 records that I downloaded. They are all about piano music, which is soothing. I know students like other kind of music, but that is ambience music. So you are getting them into the zone slowly, right? And it makes a difference. Imagine every teacher comes in, a ver, chiquilines, ¿qué estábamos haciendo? A ver, ustedes son segundo 4, quinto biológico, ¿qué teníamos? A ver, hicieron los deberes. They come into your thing. They don't see you. They just have an image, right? And some music playing. And maybe in the image you have,
Buddha.
sorry, no, whatever. I mean,
Example.
it could be an image, it could be a do now activity like we did. Another thing is every 30 minutes or so, let's do an energizer break, right? So for example, what I show you, where is it? Aquí está. So give me a topic you are doing with your students.
Mental health, because I do have
Mental
the health self-care, but when I asked them at the beginning of the year, they told me that they were a little bit bored about the pandemic. I'm talking about just about that. So they asked me to do something about the mental health.
Okay, mental health is about the brain, okay? So I want you all to take a piece of paper and a pen.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop sharing. Can you put yourselves in what is called gallery view? Do you know how to do that?
No.
Where you see everybody. Yes. Go to the upper right-hand corner of Zoom,
Yeah.
where it says view or vista.
Yes.
Click there and you have either speaker or gallery or full screen, right? Select gallery. So what I want you to do is copy this, but it has to be collaborative. So for example, if I have the screen divided like this, whoever is here has to draw this part. Whoever is here has to draw this part. Whoever is here, this part, according to your screen. You draw it and you put it next to the camera so we can see whether you form the brain or not. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh, no.
30 seconds.
Okay, which part?
You, according to your screen, you have to decide which part you have to draw.
Okay.
No.
I did it, but I'm not very well.
Okay. Just put it next to your camera and let's see if you form the brain.
Yeah.
No brain.
I don't know. I'm too bad.
Yeah, me too. Don't worry.
Don't worry. This is an energizer. It's a break, right? And we're going to see the result now. Okay?
Yeah.
Put it next to the camera.
I draw the middle because on my screen I am in the middle. So
No.
I don't know which way.
This is the square that we made,
Should be like this.
because it's the part that it was mine.
Okay.
According to my screen.
But look at what happened now. Look at what happened now, right?
Yeah.
Now, one way of doing it, because what happens now is on the screen, as you speak, we change places and each of your screens has a different arrangement. So if you want to do it, now wait a minute, what am I sharing? Wait, let me minimize this. Where am I? Okay, I cannot show it from my screen. Sorry. I
But we're
cannot show
seeing
it.
your screen.
No, but you cannot see the controls for Zoom.
Ah,
No.
If you go to the upper right-hand corner where you have three, not the upper right-hand corner, where do you have the bar with the mute and stop video and all those things?
Yes,
below.
at the
Oh,
bottom.
yeah.
At the bottom, go to more.
Okay.
When you're in your class, you see it says breakout rooms. You see something that says breakout rooms? No, you don't, because you can.
No, just the administrator.
Yes, we
No,
have
because, okay,
share screen, chat, record.
Raise hand,
Yeah.
chat. Yes.
you
Yes,
cannot, can
Ah,
you see?
configuración.
No,
de la
no, no,
reunión. No.
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 Wait a minute, I'm going to do this.
Reunión minimizada.
Participants, let me do something. I'm going to make you all co-hosts, right? So that you can see the same thing. Make co-host. Co-host. And I'm going to make Sibela co-host as well, right? Now try again.
Okay.
Seguridad, participantes, chat, compartir sección. Ah, sección de grupos.
Yes, and
Sección
next
de
to
grupos.
record, it says breakout rooms.
Breakout rooms o sección de grupos. If you click there, it's going
Yo
to
no
give
tengo
you
porque
an option.
I'm
No,
cell phone.
we are with a cell phone, Alex.
Mm,
Okay. Can you
I
see
have the one.
a black box on my screen now? No. That says create X breakout rooms?
No.
No.
I'm watching
Basically,
mine.
if you can do that and you can send us to breakout rooms, you can
do it?
decide how many. Yeah, Isabel, let's do it one by one.
Okay. 2.
But then once you send us to breakout rooms,
Yes.
have us there 20 seconds and close the breakout rooms so that we can go back. What is
Okay,
going to happen? Create the breakout room.
Okay, we're at 5. So I'm going to create.
Click breakout rooms.
Yes. Yes. I don't know where to manage the time.
Don't worry. You can close. Once you send us and we accept,
Yeah.
you can close them. There's a screen that says close all rooms.
Ah, okay. There you go.
Did you get an
Okay.
invitation to join a breakout room? Yes, I got one.
Yo estoy viendo todo. I'm watching everything.
I am not assigned.
No.
No.
Oh my God.
No, never mind. It's the system. Maybe because we are using my account and they think I am the.
Yes, because Alexandra and Sibela are in a room and
Yeah.
Anna is alone.
Yeah. And it's you and I who are unassigned because we are co-hosting. That's why. You are
Okay.
always going to remain like this. Now let's close. Let's close. Anna is here back.
Yes.
It takes about a minute to close them,
Okay.
right?
So I'm going to close this. They are coming.
Yes.
Perfecto.
With this, you make little groups. And because what they are going to see is themselves and the other folks, you can do that drawing activity very easily. But there are other activities that you can do. You can use the chat.
Yes.
And if you go to the chat,
Yes.
there is
we are
a
here.
blue button. Open the chat.
Yes.
There is a
button on
blue button that
one-
says everyone. But if
Yes.
you click there, you have the names of all the participants and you can send them a direct message, right?
Yes, found it.
So you can give instructions to each individual student there to do something and you send them to breakout rooms. You can even share a file in the chat. Do you see the file thing?
Yes.
So if you select one student and you send a file, that student is going to get the file. And the file could be a picture, it could be a word, it could be a number, whatever you want. And then they work in groups. Now, the beautiful thing is when you are, when you put them in breakout rooms, you can go in. You as a teacher can go in and monitor. How do you do that?
I didn't
Well,
know that.
Hey, you see? So basically, once they have all joined, they have accepted the invitation and joined the breakout room. Next to it, you're going to see a button that says join. So you click it and you go to breakout room 1 or breakout room 2 or 3 or 4. So you have all those facilities. Now, let me share. So we've seen the icebreakers, the breaks. Take some time to familiarize students with their system. Show them that I'm going to send you into a breakout room now. You are going to see in the chat, you're going to see an invitation. You have to click join, and you could give these instructions in Spanish. Tell them ahead of time that you are going to visit their groups or that you are not going to visit their groups. You can choose that, right? Then always start with a do now activity, something that playing the music, a PowerPoint, right? And a do now. A do now may be just write 5 words from last class, answering a question, whatever. And the first thing you do once all the students are in, you send them to breakout rooms to share. Don't just do the do now activity and leave it hanging there. No, send
With
them
a
to breakout
purpose.
rooms. Exactly. When you open the screen to do the breakout rooms, at the bottom is going to be configuración or settings or advanced, avanzada. If you click there, it gives you the option of how many breakout rooms, how long. There is a square that tells you you can put in the time of the breakout rooms, and another square that says how long it takes for them, once you close the breakout rooms, for everybody to return. I always put 5 seconds for the breakout rooms to return, and the average time for them to really work is 5 minutes. More than 5 minutes is a waste of time, right? Now, there is another thing. When they are all joined the breakout rooms, you have this screen that says room 1 and the names of the students, room 2 and the names of the students. And at the bottom, there is a button that says broadcast message to all. Enviar mensaje a todos. When I'm about to close the breakout room, a minute before I send them a message that says, I will close the rooms in 1 minute. And if you factor in the 5 seconds that the system takes, it gives them time to round things off. Okay? The other thing is, in the online medium, we have to be very explicit. So use an agenda. Now the agenda is going to have two purposes: to organize the work for the students so that they know what they're going to do in the Zoom hour, but also we're going to use it at the end of the class as a review to close our lesson, to provide closure. Then remember to vary the tasks and the kind of the mode of learning: acquisition, collaboration, practice, so that there is variety. In general, I would plan a change of activity every 10 minutes as a rule, okay? And then at the
It's
end,
like teaching children.
it's like teaching children, yeah. The thing is, we cannot hold our attention on the screen for a long period of time. We have to decenter from the screen. And maybe it means being all in plenary like this, but maybe using your cell phone. Now, we have to be very careful because some students only have access through their cell phone. So they cannot do two things at the same time.
Of
Right.
course.
But sometimes if you see that students have a computer and a cell phone, you ask them, right? So I want to introduce you to the idea of something called micro-learning. Micro-learning does not come from education. It comes from the corporate world, right? From businesses. And what micro-learning is a way that businesses are finding to train their employees with minimum resources and very high impact. How does micro-learning work? Well, basically, you take something that your employees need to learn. Pardon, Ana? Hello? Hola, Ana. Ana?
Creo que dijo que estaba en clase, se ve que
Pero-
alguien la habló.
Oh, okay.
Vengas al lado mío.
I'm going to ask her to mute. I muted her. Okay. So micro-learning means you take what students have to learn. Isabel, for example, tell me something your students will have to learn.
They will have to learn about working life, for example.
Working life.
Yes.
What aspects of working life are you going to teach first?
Really, I'm thinking about it because they are really young, they are teenagers. So first I planning to show them different pictures, like an
No, you are
office.
telling me activities. I want you to tell me what you want them to learn first.
Different type of jobs.
Okay, so that will be a vocabulary set, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So you plan in micro-learning, instead of planning students will learn about jobs, you chunk it up, you cut it up in small bits, which are sequential and additive. So the first thing is, how many words do you want them to learn about jobs?
I'm not getting the question, sorry.
How many words do you want them to learn
Yeah.
about jobs?
Hi, sorry, didn't hear. More or less 10.
Well, 10 is too much. In general, we
Yeah.
say that a person can learn in one teaching unit, 7 to 10 words. How old are your students?
15, more or less.
So they can
15,
handle 10. They can handle 10. So your first lesson, and we don't know if we're going to do it through Zoom or through CREA, okay? Or a combination or something else. The first micro-learning is learn. By the end of the lesson, students should have learned 10 words. Now, learned is a very vague term. So you want them to do something with the 10 words. So by the end of the lesson, students will match 10 words with their pictures. Or by the end of the lesson, students will be able to complete words with blanks that name 10 occupations or professions. So that is micro-learning. You create learning targets that you can see, that literally you and them can see.
Okay.
And we start with this sentence. By the end of this lesson, I should be able to. And why do I put I should be able to and not students?
Because I am the one who's
No.
teaching. No.
No, this is about learning.
So because we are I have to identify with my student, maybe.
Basically, you are writing learning outcomes, not teaching aims. Learning outcomes are expressed as if you were a student. Why? Because you are going to share the learning outcome.
Oh.
In today's lesson, we're going to start with working life, which is a theme. It's a big thing, right?
Yes. Yes.
But in today's lesson, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to put a tick next to this sentence. By the end of the lesson, I should be able to. And then you have to express who, the students, what they are going to be able to do, how, working in groups, working individually, using video, you explain. So you see, we are kind of slowly breaking everything down so that it's very, very clear, right? And then when? It could be by the end of this lesson, it could be by the end of this unit, or by the end of this week. You decide the time when they are going to be, to show you that they have learned. And they are going to show themselves that they have learned, okay? So those things you can change.
I have a question here.
Yes.
So this way of planning, I have to write this on my plan or on my own notebook where I prepare my lessons, and I have to visualize this and I have to be aware of this. This is not for the beginning of the class where I just have to write by the end of the lesson, because this is something that I do in my planning, but sometimes I got confused with this.
This is
The objectives.
no, this is the learning outcome. It's not an objective. It's written like an objective,
Yes.
but
Mhm.
it is a measure of what students have learned at the end of the lesson or not learned, right?
Okay.
So this you share with the students. You share it during the agenda time, okay?
Okay.
Wait a minute, because I'm trying to open CREA to
I
show
never
you
paid
something.
attention.
Let me open CREA
Okay.
to show you something.
Yes, okay. On my lessons.
Gabriela, how can I do this if I don't know my students yet?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm a bit lost.
Let me share. This is my CREA, okay? Let me go to didactics 1, not 3, okay?
Mhm.
When you plan your lessons, you basically, this is not the one, sorry, this one. You basically decide for each unit a sequence of, a series of, my God, a series of lessons. Some of them are going to be synchronous and some are going to be asynchronous, okay? Some through Zoom or Teams or Meet, and some through CREA. And then you do this. You communicate the learning outcomes for the module or the class. So in this, for example, this will take me 3 classes, this module 1. In the first class, they will have to define the post-method condition and explain its relevance to teaching in Uruguayan secondary schools. This is my Didactics 1 course. The second class, after they have learned about the post-method condition, they will have to analyze their teaching practice considering the principles of the post-method condition. That's the cooperating teacher, implement post-method condition. And then they have to offer ideas on how to contextualize teaching to the local reality. This from reading two articles on the post-method condition, right? They have tasks and they have collaborations, which are forums, and they have to reflect. So this is how you do it. You communicate it to the students so that the students can see it. And every time you do something, you say, well, vamos a ver cómo vamos a medir esto. A ver si lo pueden hacer. Todos tendrían que poder hacerlo al final de la clase. And you communicate them. That is, here we go outside the format of a plan to designing a learning sequence. And I'm going to give you now, in a second, let's say, not a method, but a framework for you to do that. But as I said, we need verbs that allow us to see, right? You can have 4 kinds of learning outcomes when you teach with technology, right? You may want them to reproduce things that you give them. So you could check comprehension with true or false, matching, any way you want to check comprehension. You can engage them in doing activities with worksheets like Sibela shared, or maybe now that you're going to have books in primer ciclo, the books. There is reiteration. Reiteration is not the same thing as repetition. Repetition is, I say it, you repeat it. Reiteration is, for example, this one. Do you have a piece of paper and a pen?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to talk about me. I'm going to give you a dictation, okay? But the dictation is about me. What you have to do is change the information to make it true about yourself. For example, I'm going to say, my name is Gabriel. What are you going to write?
My name is.
My name is Alessandra.
Okay, so let's do that. My name is Gabriel. I'm 57 years old. I live in Parque del Plata. You see, and then students are going to read out their texts. Why is this not repetition but reiteration? Because they put the meaning. We give them the language and they put the meaning. Another thing you can do is, we're going to learn in a minute how to use Jamboard. Jamboard is like a virtual blackboard, whiteboard that you can create. Say that you have been discussing or talking about mental health, you said, Alex. Anna, what topics are you doing now, Anna?
I just started, I'm working with a COVID-19 text,
Okay.
but I don't even know my students. That's the problem.
Why? You haven't seen them?
I've seen one part of the group, not the other one.
So you may want to do something for them to introduce themselves. And I'm going to show you one that you can do in a minute. Give me a second. But if you use Jamboard, what you do is you take these kinds of sentences, my name, and you put the words all scattered around the page. And you ask the students, they have already discussed something, like they have talked about COVID-19. The pandemic started in December 2019. It started in China. Then it spread to the world. You take those sentences that they have already discussed, you jumble the words, you put them on the screen, and you ask the students to actually say something new but true, using the words on the screen and adding words that they want. You may want, if you wanted to do repetition, what you do is the following. You take a text and you have the students read it online, right? And then this works very well with PowerPoint. Do you have PowerPoint or any kind of presentation? You write the text and then you select the words one by one. You go to animations, okay? Animations, and you look for exit animations. So every time that you click, a word is going to disappear. Instead of appearing, it's going to disappear. So you mark all the text, you prepare that, they read it, and then you click and say 3 words have disappeared. And they have to repeat the text, but complete this time. And it has disappeared, disappeared, disappeared until there's no text. And you say, now you write it. Short text, 2-3 lines long, no longer than that. Okay? That is reiteration. So that is one of the ways that you may want to work in terms of learning outcomes. You may want to elaborate. In elaboration, we include expansion, evaluation, personalization, and reflection. Expansion means you gave them COVID-19 as a title. Let's brainstorm all the words. Write down a word on the screen, right? With the whiteboard function. A word that you associate with COVID-19. Sorry. Some of my family members coming in and out. And then they have all these words, right? You can move to evaluation and you say, okay, we're going to write the script of a news item about COVID-19 in Uruguay. Look at the words that you have contributed. Are they enough? Do we need any other word? That's an evaluation. Then you can go to personalization. You can ask them to write true sentences about themselves about COVID-19 or something that happened in their family, something personal. And then with reflection, it has to do with basically thinking. What have I learned today? Look at the learning outcome. Can I put a tick next to it? If not, what can I do? Right? What do I need to do? I have to memorize the words. I have to, etc. Another learning outcome is to have a reaction, to react to something that you give them. So there you can ask them for opinions. You can give them a problem to solve. Now I live with my daughter and her 2-year-old daughter and her husband. My daughter is a kindergarten teacher and she works in a kindergarten. She's forced to go and teach. How can we protect ourselves from COVID-19? That's a problem to solve. You put them in breakout rooms and they have to give you advice. Tell her to wash her hands, tell her to wear a mask, etc., etc. You see, manageable things. Of course, it could be various clarification. That is for more advanced students. Whether you discover the value, right? For example, in the same situation, is it right or wrong that my daughter is forced to go and teach in the kindergarten, right? And why? And then do self and peer evaluation. Again, let's look at the learning outcome. And then choose a classmate. Do you think your classmate can do it? And the last thing, of course, is creation. They can propose something, create a poster, design a campaign, an awareness campaign, invent something, invent a logo for COVID-19 and explain it. They can do projects. Sorry. And they can also do projects. That they can do in their own time. Yes, Alexandra.
I was thinking about, for example, telling them to prepare something like, what if it is again 2019 and the pandemic is coming, and if they could go back to the past, well, so what would they tell themselves to do,
Great. Or how can
or
they
not
change?
to do, or not to do, or whatever.
Exactly. And what would they change? There's an activity
Mhm.
called changing with a magic wish that is very good. Say you are given, a genie appears out of the bottle and it grants you one wish, right?
Mhm.
To change something. What would you change and why? The important thing there is not just saying what they would change, but explain why. That is what is going to help them produce a lot of language. Now, if you want to think more about this and to get more ideas, I recommend that you look for something called Bloom's taxonomy. Have you ever seen Bloom's taxonomy?
Yes, yes, we've seen it.
Well,
No,
what Bloom
sorry, I
did,
didn't, sorry, I didn't see it, sorry.
okay, Bloom was a psychologist connected to education. In the 1960s, he wanted to describe all the domains of human activity. So he looked at the cognitive domain, he looked at the motor domain that has to do with doing things with our bodies, and he looked at the affective domain. And for that, he created a taxonomy. What kind of levels do humans go through in using these domains? The most famous one is the cognitive domain because it was immediately adopted by education. But he also has the motor domain and the affective domain he died before completing, right? So what he says is that when we learn, we use lower order thinking skills and higher order thinking skills. Lower order thinking skills have to do with remembering, understanding, and applying. So first, to learn, we have to remember information. Now, remembering is the most basic cognitive operation. If you really want to do something with what you remember, you need to understand it. And then you need to apply it. Those are lower order thinking skills. The higher order thinking skills are analyze, which is breaking down information in pieces, evaluate, which means giving judgment on some information, and last but not least, create. Now, the beautiful thing about Bloom is that for his, we have it in lessons learned. You have Bloom's taxonomy complete, right, for the cognitive domain. So look for it there. It's in a table format. He gives us verbs that we can use to show the learning. So remember, how do you know if a student can remember? Well, they have to, you remember if you can define something, or you can make a list, or you can recall. Recall is not the same thing as remember. Remember is the mental operation. Recall is the verbal operation. Or identify or select. Those are the verbs that make us know that the students can do it, okay? Sorry. The same thing for understand. What I like about this, and I'm sharing this, this is Creative Commons?
Yes.
Well, this is
Yes.
Creative Commons, and it cannot be modified, it cannot be shared, I cannot charge for it, but I can use it. And you have here, as you can see, the source and all the intellectual property, right? Which is always important to put. This graphic gives us not just verbs, but also activities. The top of the stairs, you have activities that you can do, right? So when you receive this, you will be able to see it in full screen, and you can select what activities students do. The second thing is, we've been talking about the learning outcomes, which are the guide or the horizon or the destination. But throughout the process, we need to inform ourselves and the students whether they are learning or not. So there are three kinds of assessment. Assessment of learning, that is the assessment of the learning outcomes. Can they do it or not? Do they put a tick or do they put a cross? If they put a cross, what can we do to help them? So that is assessment of learning. And it's important online that for every learning experience, you know exactly whether you can do it or not, right? Because in class, it's very easy for us to discover that and to make an intervention. But online, it's almost impossible for the students to actually have some remedial work unless you guide them. And there is where I want to show you something on CREA. And I don't know if you can do it. I asked my students, let me go here. See if it appears here. Here. I asked my students, what's the problem here? Wait a minute. It's so slow today.
Yes.
Here. Here, this is for tareas. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
And by the way, Carolina allowed me to share this with you. If I make it public, if I click here in calificación, right? I can put the grade and I can put a comment which everybody will see, right? If I click mostrar al estudiante. If I don't click mostrar al estudiante, nobody can see it, right? And this is what you do for assessment of learning. Yes, you give them a grade, you give them a mark, you make a comment or not. But remember that that comment is going to be seen by everybody. But here, right, I can communicate directly with Carolina without you seeing anything. And you know the most beautiful thing? I don't need to write anything. I
Oh my
can
God.
record an audio, or I can record audio alone, or I can record audio and video. And who will see it? That student only. So this is a perfect tool, right? For you to give feedback to your students on how they can improve their learning. And believe me, you are not going to have all 30 students underperforming at the same time. So it will be 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 at the most. But you can do this very quickly, right? And guess what? After you have, tienen que darle publicar. Don't forget, always click publicar o enviar. Otherwise, they don't receive it. Yes.
But if you click on mostrar al estudiante,
If you click mostrar al estudiante, everybody will see it, the student and the peers.
so I don't have to click on it
No.
in order to open the student.
Here I give the grade because that is what goes into the grade book, right? Lo que va a la libreta.
Yes.
But this comment is to help the student learn better, right? And here it's only me and that student. The student gets my audio recording. A ver, Carolina, mira, está bueno el resumen, pero te olvidaste de X, no sé qué, no sé cuánto. She can respond to me also by audio. Right.
My God.
So
Yeah.
this is
Solo
her.
no darle mostrar al estudiante para que lo vea solo ella.
Claro. If you are, I mean, when you do mostrar al estudiante, you have to do it for the grade. But if you put a comment there, when you go to libreta de calificaciones, for example, which I'm going to show you now, you see that it has a little bubble here.
Yes.
If they click, they can, if anybody clicks, they can see the comment that you made. En mostrar al estudiante, right? But they cannot see the communication you did you had with the students individually. Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
good. So we're talking about assessment. An assessment as learning is a dimension that we're going to see. I have selected, and I have, yesterday I scanned a lot of readings for you to do, varied. But assessment as learning is one of the most powerful ways of helping students learn. And it has to do with self-assessment and peer assessment. So we have to find tools, right? Now, how are you going to organize your lessons? I have a colleague whose name is Jason Anderson. He's a colleague who doesn't, I mean, he's not published, but he is very active on LinkedIn. You know LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Which is a work social media. And he has been exploring ways of teaching students on site and online that depart a little bit from the regular methodologies. And this is his suggestion, right? First activities you do some text work, comprehension, right? Connected to the topic, using materials. The materials can be the course books, it could be whatever you select, you create, and it could be oral or written. The purpose there is that they learn the key vocabulary for what they are going to be doing in the unit, okay?
So we go from the word to.
It's not going from the word to the meaning, it's generating the set that will control the meaning making. Because you can say a lot by saying individual words. You can, the meaning can be clear. If you don't know grammar, but you know hungry, food, me, you understand that, right? But if it's only grammar and no vocabulary, you cannot say nothing, as they would say in the States. You can't say anything. You cannot say nothing. Right? So the vocabulary is what sets the topic. And of course, vocabulary in context, as we saw last class, is not that I give them a list of vocabulary. We read a text. So we go from the whole to the word to go back to the whole, right? Do you understand now? Yes. That is why it's text work. Then we give them a task. Students do something with the information on the text. Remember, you can choose any of these 4 learning outcomes. Do you want them to reproduce, to elaborate, to react, or to create? You decide what. A good progression is to go from 1 to 4. So you make sure, right?
Okay.
Let me go back. Hey. This thing, I don't know what the problem is. I lost my cursor. So they do something with the information on the text. And more importantly, they present what they do to the rest of the class. Okay? And then what happens when they present? You're going to listen and you're going to see what they know and what they don't know. So what do you do in the next lesson? Let's see. How does this finish? It finishes with a language focus and practice. So it's not task-based learning. It's not PPP. It's text, task, language, right? So they do the text work. They have access to the meaning. They do something with that, right? They reproduce it or etc. or I don't know, create something with it. And then they present it to the class. When they present it to the class, you can hear them and you know what they are not able to do. So there, you do the language focus and the practice, right? And then you go back to the task and you have them do the same task again, or a similar one. Okay? Now, what some of these things they're going to do in face-to-face Zoom. For example, the text work they can do alone on CREA, okay? The task they have to do in the face-to-face. The language focus, you can record a short video explaining this is how you say it, this is how you form it, and the practice, part of the practice can be online, asynchronous, so in between classes, and then they do the task again with you present during the same class. My students tried it last year, and this model worked very well, right? They call it the 1, 2, 3, not to go PPP or TBL. They call it the 1, 2, 3 model, and it worked very well with this combination of things. And then the important thing is that you give your students formative feedback, right? Just saying well done or way to go or insufficient or not there yet does not give students any information. And here is where you can go to the private message in CREA, and I'm going to give you a recipe to give feedback quickly and thoroughly. And this is what I will use with you, what I use with you when I give you feedback. I call it show that you care. C-A-R-E, care. And when you give this kind of feedback, you are caring for your students. This feedback process is very quick and it has 4 moments. First, clarify. If there is anything that the student did that you are not clear about, ask them a question in the message that you send them. Look, Isabel, I saw that your students were all writing down lists of words. Did they work with a text before or not? Because maybe you worked with a text that followed the previous class, and this was just a revision. And you were asking them to do individual words instead of words in context. So because I'm not sure, instead of saying, you shouldn't have done this, Isabel, what I say is, did they work with a text before? And if you say, no, we didn't. I say, remember, words have meaning in the context of other words in discourse, not individually, right? So what could you have done differently? And there I challenge you, right?
Yes.
After that, you tell the students everything they did great, you appreciate. You say, I like the way you managed to put all these words in context. Your pronunciation was really beautiful. What you did was really funny. You were very, very clear. So give them as much positive feedback as possible, realistic. Not feedback, not because the students know what they can do and what they cannot do. And if we overpraise them, they know we are phony. So give them positive feedback, but realistic. And then tell them, okay, all this was great, but now, remember the goal was for you to be able to use 10 words correctly, connected to the topic correctly. Now, I counted how many words you used, and you used only 4. So you still need to learn 6 more words, right?
Okay.
I give you a very clear and honest evaluation. Now, what can you do? Well, you know what you can do? First of all, let's go back to the text. Please read it again and underline the words that you still cannot use, right? Then look for the meaning of those words, how we discuss the meaning. And you know what? In the message, send me in a private message either by sound or writing, true sentences about yourself, about using those 6 words. I want you to use those 6 words. You don't have to correct extra. You will just read it. But you have given students steps to fulfill, right?
And solutions.
And
to the-
solutions, exactly. And you know that it has been proved by research that this kind of feedback not only helps all learners learn, but it helps those learners who have the most difficulty learn, right? Because good students and average students, they can do with a well done, right? Because they are self-aware. But the bad students or the weak students, they are not self-aware. So when you give them this, you give them a tool to improve. This is the best mediation that you can give your learners. And believe me, it doesn't take forever. And the time you will save in the future, that's the important thing. If you think you're wasting time with this, the time you're, and as I say, not every student is going to have a real need because they are severely underperforming, right? What applications can you use? I want to share these that I have used.
I wish I have learned that way.
Well,
and not the grammar way.
Now, these are applications that either I have used in my courses or my students have used in their courses. And I also added what Sibela shared with us, right? So we're going to start with Padlet. Do you know Padlet?
I never use it.
Now, Padlet, the only thing is you have to create your own accounts, and your accounts are free up to a certain limit. For example, with Padlet, you can have 3 free Padlets, right? You can have a wall. This is like a virtual bulletin board, right? When you do your experimental practice assignment, this is what we are going to use for you to present it, right? The wall is like a bulletin board. Then there's a canvas. A canvas is like a place where you hang things, but you connect them somehow. There is a logic.
It's like
and
is the way you
consequence.
did that in our page, for example, with the
No,
in CREA?
no,
No?
but you
Is that-
can use this. You can use this to take the
Okay.
image. You know how I did it? I created a Word document, right? And
Mhm.
then in the Word, I created an empty table, una tabla, right?
Mhm.
And I needed so many squares, let's say. I made sure that it didn't have a border, because if you copy it with a border, it will come with a border. And I just copied it from Word and I pasted it on CREA. And then what you do is you click on the square where you want to have an image or to write something, and you add the image there. Well, you have all these possibilities. You can also have a stream. A stream is this, una cadena, right? You can have a grid. You decide what goes where. You could have a shelf. A shelf is interesting because the shelf has a title. So you may have, for example, vocabulary, nice expressions or interesting expressions, and ideas. And the students write words in vocabulary, chunks in expressions, and ideas, complete ideas in the ideas column. You, teacher, decide what the heading is. You can have a back channel, which is a dialogue in writing, or a map if you need to use a map. And the nice thing is they can put into the map, they can put images, they can put audio, they can put text, and then a timeline, right?
Mhm.
You decide. you don't have to have the students create their own version, their own Padlet. You just share a code with them and they will write to your Padlet, right? Because I'm trying not to find applications that do not force the students to create their own account, right? Then there's Flipgrid, right? You know what a Flipgrid is? Have you ever used it?
No, never.
No, never.
This is
I'm like a
Me neither.
newborn in this because I don't know nothing about different ways of using technology. And last year, when I worked virtually with my students, they do not have access to CREA or so on. But first of all, my last practice, it was with a cooperative teacher. So it was her job and she was the one who uploaded activities and those things. So I didn't learn nothing about creating this kind of activity. So I'm like a newborn in this.
Don't worry, because what I'm giving you here,
Yeah.
for example, all these applications say your students do not have access to CREA, right?
Okay.
You can use a Google Drive,
Yeah.
you know Google Drive?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can use whatever they do on these applications, you put them in the Google Drive and it acts as a CREA. It's not organized, but you
Yeah.
can it can act as a CREA. There's something called Google Classroom. I don't know how to use it, so I cannot teach you. But apparently in Google Classroom, you can do these things. With Flipgrid, you create a group. A group is a topic, right?
Yeah.
And then you create a discussion topic by clicking a button and recording a video of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then you share the code with students. They get your video and they record their own video. They record an answer to you or to a classmate. And what you see is all the little videos around the same topic. I find this is a wonderful thing for the whole year to keep the progress record of the students throughout the year, right? For a portfolio. Flipgrid, you have the addresses there, right? VoiceThread, it's a similar thing, not so well organized.
No.
As you can see, you can upload things from your computer, from media sources. You can upload an audio recording, a webcam photo, a webcam video, or a URL, and you create some sort of interactive activity. Questions that students have to answer, or a video they have to respond to, etc. Right?
The name is Voice.
VoiceThread.
Voice.
VoiceThread.com. I'm not a big fan of this, but when you have nothing else, it's not about application. Then you have Canva. Canva is a design app. It doesn't help you with language learning. So you can do presentations, you can do things for social networks, they can record videos, they can print things, you can do marketing, things for the office. And I'm sorry. And things that they can do is a presentation, an infography, they can create logos, they can do graphic design, posters, whatever. What is nice is to add a level of reality, right? So if you ask the students to create an infography, you take them, they can do it on Canvas, and they have images, they have templates, so it helps them have a very nice design. You may decide to give everybody the same design or let them choose the design that they most like, right? But then you can, if you're going to have rather permanent groups, they can give their group a name and create a logo for the group that gives them a feeling of belonging. They can create brochures, they can create calendars, you name it. And
So it's like working with Realia.
they create their own realia. That's it. Exactly. That's it. So, and it's great for us also to create some very nice handouts, right? Then there's Floop. Do you know Floop?
No.
If you don't have the capacity on CREA to send them oral feedback, you use Floop, right? So basically, it's a web app that saves teachers time and helps students see the value in feedback. It's free, right? And there is a wonderful video. And the nice thing, all these applications can be used from a cell phone. So students
Do they
would-
have? Sorry. Do they have to download Floop?
no, everything is online. They have nothing to download. They don't have to sign up,
Okay.
right? All is through codes. And then there's Jamboard. Jamboard is a virtual blackboard. Zoom has a virtual blackboard, but it's not as nice as Jamboard. What Jamboard does is it allows you to, students, you can ask students to do whatever you want. You can give them a picture and they can write by clicking on the text. They click, oh, sorry, and they write things. They can, you have Post-its of different colors. You can have shapes, you can have drawing. But the nice thing is you can create the Jamboard as a template, for example, or you can pre-design. So in the first part of the class, I want them to write words here. In the second part of the class, I want them to analyze a picture, and you have everything ready. So it's like flipping the pages on a book.
Yeah.
Right. And again, one nice thing about this is that you, after the students have worked, you can save the Jamboard and send it to them as a PDF.
Great.
Yeah, Sibela is writing that
But so
another.
you use this inside the Zoom,
You use
say,
this, and
for example.
let's go to one of live worksheets that Sibela sent us. And Sibela said there's Slide Go is another application to do presentations that they can use. The nice thing about live worksheets is that it allows us to create some sort of games. But remember, this is drag and drop. It's not very interactive, but it's great for practice. Now, one word of caution though. Do not use worksheets which are already uploaded there. Create your own. Many of the worksheets have serious language problems.
Yes, I've seen that before.
And also, they are decontextualized. And the important thing here is everything should go towards the same topic that we're dealing with, using the vocabulary we've taught them, because that's what we want them to learn. And if we teach them any language, the language that we've taught them. So use this discreetly, right? I think that, for example, the crosswords are a wonderful way of reviewing vocabulary. Don't use it in class, in synchronous class, assign it for homework, right?
For homework, yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that the only thing you have to do is you copy the URL, this address that appears here on the bar. You put it, if you have CREA, you put it on CREA as a link. And they just go there and they land on the
And do it.
page. Yeah.
So nice.
And then Zoom. Yes.
Another website that you can use to create your own games and things like that is EducaPlay. That has
EducaPlay.
a lot of different activities to do, and also live workshops. You can create your own PDFs,
Yeah.
upload them, and
they are
do different activities with them.
they can be
last year,
editable PDFs. One of the things.
Last
Yes.
year, Inés gave us one Spanish
Yes.
sobre recursos educativos. That is great and
Mhm.
free too.
Good. Well, and then
Our
Zoom
Spanish government page.
website.
Yes, website. Mhm.
Then with Zoom, you can do a lot of things. You can share a screen. You can put them in breakout rooms. Did you know that you can also do polls in Zoom? Encuestas.
No.
You have
Oh, no.
you have to pre-design them, right? So
Mhm.
let me show you something.
Like this.
There. Let me go to my Zoom. Of course, with Zoom, you have to sign up, you know that.
Sign up.
Then this is the landing page. You go to meetings. And let's say we schedule a meeting, right? My meeting, you do all these things, the time, the date. And then you go to settings for the meeting. You make sure wait a minute. Where is it? Schedule meeting. Oh, I have to create it first. Sorry. That's why it's not working. So schedule a meeting, my meeting, and hey, no, it's you say. You see here at the bottom,
Yes.
it says poll. And you add,
Mm,
the problem is you can only do, you have to do it before the lesson, and you can only do yes, no answers or multiple choice. Okay? But you give, this is another advantage it has. I can make it anonymous, so I don't know who is answering. If you want feedback, or you make it, it will tell you who answered what, right? You create it, you can add questions. They are all multiple choice, right? No other form of question, but you can add as many questions as possible. You save it, and then when you are in the lesson, you have a button there that says poll, and you decide when to put it, right? What else can we do with Zoom? Here. Well, you can share, as you know, anything that you have on your screen. One important thing is when you are showing videos on Zoom, or you are sharing audio on Zoom, you have to go, you know, the bar where you have the microphone and everything, you have 3 suspension dots. You click there, right?
okay, más. Mhm.
And it should say something like share audio. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay. Then let's go to your bar with video. Go to video settings.
Integrated webcam, choose background,
Yeah,
Choose
where it says
picture.
settings.
configuración del video.
Configuración de la
Configuración
reunión.
de la reunión. Ahí está. Let me talking about having many things open. If you go to general, right?
Yes.
You you click by default, you can have the skin color for the reactions, etc. If you go to video, it will ask you the source. No, it's not here either.
Mhm.
What I would recommend is use the Zoom tutorial, because what happens is this: if you want to use to show a video clip and you don't select optimize for video clip, you have to find optimize for video clip. Maybe it's in share screen.
Video clip.
No,
And of course, the
it's
sound is
not
better.
here. It's not here. Well, optimize for video clip. If you don't click there, what students are going to see is slow motion, the video in slow motion. The sound is going to go here, the video is going to go here. And the other thing is, if you want them to actually listen to good sound, you have to click share computer sound. Share
That's
computer
great for
sound.
phonetics.
Exactly. Share
We have to
computer sound.
teach Julie.
Yes.
Julie. Sorry.
It's in the, it's in the, here it is, share sound. Now, if you go, now, yes, I don't know why. If you go to the bar with a microphone, the stop video, security, all that, and you go to more, can you open the more?
Yes.
Go down, donde dice share sound, compartir sonido, ¿lo ven?
No.
¿No lo ven? Select share in sound mode, stereo, mono. No, no aparece. ¿Qué les aparece en
It's
el
not
more?
in settings.
No, en el
Not in
more.
settings.
More arriba que dice chat, reactions.
Ok, I have. Levantar la mano, seguridad, grabar en la nube, chatear, configuración de la reunión, reunión minimizada, fondo y filtros.
Nada
My
más.
cell phone. Yes, nada más.
Bueno, when
But
you,
it's my cell phone, it's not the computer.
no,
Maybe.
and it's also, I'm the administrator of the account here. When you're in your own account, go to more. Yeah, and there you should appear share sound and optimize for video clip, right? Now, last thing, your students' well-being. Remember everything we said about the affective thing, right? Personalize as much as possible. For example, write the lesson outcomes in the first person. Make sure you explain why you're doing things, particularly if they are mechanical or repetitive activities. Give them a reason. This is, estamos practicando, chiquilinas, porque cuando ustedes practican, después lo van a poder hacer solos. Or give any logical explanation. If you're going to use rubrics or checklists or any assessment instrument, share them before providing the task so that they can use the criteria as a guide. And then always give formative feedback, right? If you know that you are not going to have time to grade an activity, make it an evaluación en CREA, right? An evaluation in CREA, or a Google form, which could be a multiple choice or different kinds of questions, which is self-corrected. So the student finishes it and already knows what they got right or got wrong, right? If you don't have time, create activities to correct and give feedback, create activities like that. And then use feedback for really meaningful activities. And in terms of your well-being, guys, pace yourselves. Prepare one unit at a time. When we see that how pressed we are, we tend to use any free time, and I do it myself, to kind of advance preparation. right? Or prepare ahead of time. And most of the times I have to start back from zero. So prepare this unit and see how it works. Automatize as much as you can so that you don't have piles and piles to correct. Whenever you do a Zoom class or Teams, a synchronous class, keep it organized to a pattern, right? So that you and your students know first this, then this, then this. Do
Like
not
in
over
the classroom.
exactly. Do not overdo the
Mhm.
synchronous class as well. It's very well for you to say, okay, we have 3 hours a week. Our Zoom lessons are going to be 1 hour, but make sure that during 1 hour, students are
You do.
interacting with each other, not with you, right?
Yes.
Remember, when you are teaching on site between one class and the next, when the bell rings, you leave the classroom and you go somewhere else. You take a little break. We have a tendency online to just keep going. So we burn out very quickly. Force yourself to have a break in between your classes, 5 minutes at least. And there is no sin here in telling your students that you're going to start 5 minutes past the time. Say the class starts at 1, well, I'm going to start at 5 past 1 because I finished another lesson at 5 to 1, right? So I need a 10-minute break. Those 10 minutes that you take, that you say, ah, pero pierdo 5 minutos de clase. No, you are gaining 5 extra minutes because you're going to be relaxed. And let's be honest, we have to go to the bathroom, we have to eat something, and we cannot do it on screen, right? Collaborate and plan together with other teachers. Find a planning buddy, somebody with whom you can do things, right? Together.
Oh yes, I do have luckily in Solimar because she was my cooperating teacher and she has in second. So she has the other quinto biológico. So she is guiding me and helping.
Great.
I'm helping her with the computer things too because she doesn't know a lot. Well, I'm learning too, but
Yeah,
it's like it's great because I don't feel alone.
and which brings me to the next point is share whatever you create. You never know who can use it or who can have something already made that will help you as well. So
Yes,
share the resources. And if you are
of course.
experiencing difficulties, ask for help.
Of course.
Don't play the hero. Like, oh, yo voy a poder, soy una mujer liberada, voy a poder hacer todo sola. We all need help. We all need help, guys, right? Now, what I wanted to do today is just give you, these are the rudiments, but I didn't want to give you activities. I wanted to give you also some sort of theoretical support for these things. Just take the different learning modes and think, do I have as many learning modes as possible in my lesson, or is my lesson only about me talking to you, right? I want you to have a first-hand experience with Padlet and to give you another clue. So to see whether our lesson today was useful, I'm going to ask you to complete an exit ticket. Now, if you have your cell phone close, you can scan the QR code, right?
Yes.
And it
I'm
will
using my
take
phone.
you
I'm
to
doing
my
it.
Padlet.
Ir al sitio web. I'm doing it.
Good. And then when you land there, you're going to land on my Padlet. And the Padlet is anonymous most of the times, unless you decide it's not anonymous. So I want you to tell me at least 2 things that you're taking away from today's meeting. Okay?
I can't do it because I'm using my cell phone, but
Yeah.
I do it from here.
Good.
Let's see.
Now, the nice thing about Padlet is that you can share the screen through Zoom. And as you write, it will appear on the screen. Have you written something?
I'm writing.
Okay, good.
I can't do it from here.
There's one. You see how it appears?
No.
Can you see it on my screen?
Ah, sí.
Yes.
They will all appear. These are anonymous. So it's perfect for the exit ticket, right? I just wanted you to have the feeling of how this worked, right? So that you see it's not just so good. Questions, you people?
I don't know if I have questions at this moment because this is a kind of breath because I am really anxious about this, and with this lesson it was like a flow of air when I can breathe a bit.